Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of KOFISI Connect podcast. My name is Annebelle Wafula, and in studio today we have Michael Aldridge, CEO and founder of KOFISI Africa, whose remit is creating spaces which promote productivity in Africa. This is in celebration of World Productivity Day on the 20th of June. Hello, Michael.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Great, thanks very much for having me here.
Thank you for making time. Welcome to the studio.
It's great.
Productivity is an important part of any organization. What is productivity exactly to you?
Well, it's the right place to start, isn't it? We've got to understand what it means
Yes.
at the beginning. I mean, I think simply put, we think of it as doing more from the same. That's not to be confused with efficiency, which is the same from less. So I suppose if you deal with the economics first, with growth and productivity, an economy is able to produce increasingly more goods and services from the same amount of work. Anecdotally, I suppose a great example that I'd read about, which I think really sums it up well, is if you consider the great United States back in the 1800s, nearly 90% of the working population were farmers back then. But by 2000, the equivalent number is only 2%. But at the same time, productivity has shown that there's more output in agricultural products today than there were back in the 1800s. And so I think that's a great example of how a country has created a much more productive environment. What that means is that then now food prices are lower today. In real terms, it frees up workers for other tasks. So as a new way of economic growth takes place, and that is really the essence of productivity. It's about how we can do more from the same.
That's an interesting point you've said. Why is this important currently?
I think it's always going to be important because if employees can complete their work in good time, this means that they have more time to spend on other tasks, which I think we would all agree is a better scenario. This increases output and saves both the company money, yourself money, you can achieve goals. So if your work is productive and you're dedicated to that work, both the quality and quantity of work improves. I think that talks to improved wellness and economic benefits. So it's hard to imagine a world where you wouldn't want productivity.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I also think that employee productivity solely depends on how productive a leader is. Do you know how we could measure employee productivity?
Well, it's a great question, and it's one that we ask ourselves the whole time. As a company that is striving to provide environments that assist in productivity, how can we measure that output? I think there are some obvious things. I mean, if you win, productivity is part of that journey. And so if you're winning more work, I think that measures it well. I think there are some more basic input measurements around the amount of work that your staff can produce over a certain period that companies could get into measurement for. And there's technology that can assist you in that kind of data tracking. But I think in its rawest sense, I think the best parallel for me is sport. And if you think about an athlete, amateur or professional, they put in a number of hours to actually achieve towards a certain target, a goal, an event. And then they compete in that event. If you win, you get a medal. If you cross the line, you get a medal. In my amateur running case, it's just trying to get across the line, right? But in an Olympian sense, it's to win a medal. So I think you can measure the output by quite demonstrable elements. But I think on its most basic level, it's about trying to track how much time you're putting into each task to actually achieve those goals.
I think that's a very important thing that you have stated, and it's probably the sole secret behind successful organizations. What do you think are the best ways to increase productivity in the workplace?
Oh, no, so now you want all the secrets?
Yes, all of them.
All of them, okay. Well, there's a lot of tips, and we spend a lot of time consuming information about these areas. I mean, some of my favorites in terms of being more productive include stopping multitasking. It's a common mistake that people think they can do more than one thing at a time. And actually, if you apply what they call as the 2-minute rule, if something can be done in under 2 minutes, get it done straight away and try and focus on one thing at a time. That's a favored one. Taking breaks is also a big area that we've looked at, and we really support that by providing a variety of spaces in our work environments. And while our centres are so big, to allow people to have that time to breathe and to look at other vistas, while to get those ideas to be as good as possible. And take care of the big tasks when you're the most alert. I think that's one I live by. There are many great books on all of this. I'm a big subscriber to Robin Sharma's wonderful book, The 5 a.m. Club, getting the the best hours out of the day. He talks about sort of the time value of every hour, and I'm now much more of a lark than an hour because I've realized that doing more early makes more sense. Okay, and I think that's been probably the biggest productivity lesson I've learned. And I think you combine that with Mark Twain's brilliant statement about getting the hardest things done first, where I think he talked about if you eat a live frog first in the morning, nothing worse will happen to you for the rest of the day. So they sort of apply that in business terms to just take on the most difficult task first, and everything else after that will feel easy.
I'm sure that these points are really interesting generally, but could we come closer home? Why was productivity so important to you, and why is it so important to increase productivity in Africa?
Productivity for Africa is a vital step, largely because the level of productivity is the most fundamental and important factor to determining the standard of living. Raising productivity allows people to get what they want faster, or even to get more in the same amount of time. And I think that's what we are aiming to do in our workspaces. We talked earlier about the transition from agriculture to service economies, and that's happening everywhere. We're just seeing rapid transformation physically in these environments that we're sitting in now. You know, the new expressway go up in Nairobi. We're all benefiting from improved infrastructure across all cities that we as KOFISI operate in, and billions of people are working in. And now what that means is that there's more tools and capacity to be able to do more. And so productivity as a theme will naturally fall out of the bottom. I think that we will see an enormous amount of transition, both in terms of active productivity and passive productivity, because in terms of active productivity, people will naturally be able to do things faster, therefore they can get more out of their hour in the day, which means they can earn more money, right? And passively, I believe that standards bar will rise, which means that everyone, whether it's an individual, a company, or a family, or a town, or an environment, is going to have a new set of standards. And I think that's an exciting but also quite a, dare I say, difficult journey to go on, because everything that everyone's understood to be the way, that it took 3 hours to get from the airport to the center of town, it now takes 8 minutes. That's a huge change, right? And that's physical productivity, if you think about it, in terms of now what you can do in those 2 hours and 52 minutes that you now have on your side.
It's so interesting that everything is connected. Like, you see, productivity is directly affecting the standard of living. And here we had the pandemic that came and overtook everything and the normal that we knew. How did COVID or working from home affect the productivity of some of your members?
Well, it's a wonderful debate. I mean, it's been an extraordinary journey for everyone. And I think in the context of productivity, it's been quite a dilemma, because on one hand, it could be said it was better, to have less distraction by being at home. Were we more focused? Certainly productivity, I think, spiked as there was less what I would call time leakage. Even if you just consider, what I mean by that is wasted time or unplanned time, right? So if you consider the ritual of a meeting alone, there was the planning to go to the meeting, leaving when everyone was ready, getting in the taxi, arriving, saying hello, signing in, sitting down, ordering the coffee, then you start the meeting, and then you'd have that in reverse at the back. Whereas now with the Zoom, you're on, right? And that's it. And I felt that, where I used to have to travel to other continents to have conversations, that I could come off the phone and be with my family now. And so that had productive benefits in other ways. But people still need to come together, and they need to share ideas. And I think that's been evidenced throughout time. Notably in religious context, people go out and practice their faith, but they reaffirm it every Sunday by coming together. So I think this need to be together can't be forgotten. And now I feel that productivity in some ways has changed in the way that you can actually segment your time to dedicate to work and your time to collide, right, is easier split, because it's accepted that you might do things in a different way.
But I think, like, for some people, there are actually more distractions in the office and would prefer working from home. How do you work around that at KOFISI?
We are experts in providing dynamic space. I mean, that's what we do. So we provide a real variety of spaces for you to be able to operate from. And I think that variety is something that is a replication of your sense of focus that you may get when you're in your own home space. We feel we brought quite a lot of the home into our work environments as well. It feels softer in certain spaces, but it's also highly focused in others. I talk a bit about what I call the infinite loop of productivity. There is a relationship between those times that you're with other people and times when you're on your own that has a loop effect to create those kind of productive environments, which means you need both. You start with collision. You meet people that you haven't met before. We're meeting today to talk about productivity. That will generate ideas. Those ideas can then be taken into a decision phase, okay, which means that you can go off and think them through. Once your decisions have been made and you're going to do things, you need a dedication period, okay? Dedication allows you to have the time, the quiet, the reflection time to actually think through and create the thing that's required. And you may do that on your own, you may do that in a team. And then finally, once you've dedicated your time to your work, you then want to come out and show everyone what you've done, and because it's succeeded, and you celebrate. In celebrating, you create new ideas through collision, and collision creates more decision, and decision creates more dedication, and so on and so forth. So this infinite loop, right, is something that I think is the essence of the whole scenario. And when we think about what we've been doing with KOFISI, we've been supporting those 4 areas. Our collision spaces, we offer. Everyone has those at the moment when they go into food and beverage establishments or they go out for a coffee with a friend, but you have them on site here. We have a range of lounges and cafes and terraces, but then we also have decision spaces because you can book up meeting rooms. You can go into anything from a 4-man to a 50-man scenario where you're making decisions. And then you go off to your private office. You can close the door and you're saying, today I'm getting things done. You might do that in a phone booth or in a private work pod because you just need to really focus away from your own team. And then finally, we support the celebration. We love to celebrate at KOFISI. We loved it when people are winning. We hold many events in large arenas or assembly spaces for people to talk about their successes and their failures as well, right? And then we all learn, and then they go off for a drink afterwards in our collision spaces. So, the idea of productivity is it's the root cause of what we do, right? It's the root, and we're proud of being able to support that loop.
It's amazing to see how much can be created just around productivity. Would you say that Productivity Day is one of your favorite holidays?
Yeah, I think it is. Well, it's not very productive to take the day off, I suppose, is it really? But we should have cake. We should talk about it more. I think you need to celebrate this element of business. Business is hard, life is tough. You take the time to celebrate all the elements that go into it. And I think making a virtue of the idea of being productive, I think can generate a small sense of pride, as it would encourage us to do another task and another task and another, right? Because it creates a great output. An output ultimately, when you talk about measuring, there's no greater success than food on the table, and if you're more productive and more successful at work, you will feel better about yourself. You will do more things. You will achieve more goals. You'll climb more mountains. And I think that's a wonderful place to be. Productivity, I think, gives you purpose. And having purpose in your life gives you a reason to get up every morning. And when you reach a goal, your self-esteem rockets. So yeah, let's celebrate that. I think it's great having a day like today, striving towards something that is an area that I think gives you energy, focus, conviction. Productivity can help you grow, and I think it's great that we have a day that is celebrating that.
Thank you so much for your time, Michael. I already feel like I am in the mood to be productive today. This has been a very enlightening session, and I cannot wait to have more discussions around productivity with you later today.
Well, that's wonderful. It's been really excellent discussion, and I really thank you for your time.